For our university-based research project, we chose to do our project on the determination of the concentration of acrylamide in college students' diets. This project was conducted by myself, Pankti Parikh, Varun Raja, and Riya Kanwar. So the first question you probably asked yourself when you heard the title of this presentation was, what is acrylamide? That's fair. That's what we asked ourselves as well when we had first read the article that inspired this entire project. Acrylamide is a chemical compound, and its formula is C3H5NO. It's actually much more common than you would think. Acrylamide is a chemical used primarily to make substances called polyacrylamide and acrylamide copolymers. It's found in all kinds of things. It's found in wastewater treatment processing, crude oil processing, food and coffee, cigarette smoke, and it's also involved in paper production, dyes, and plastics. Probably the most common way that people interact or come in contact with acrylamide is through food and coffee and cigarette smoke. The focus of this investigation is going to be particular to food and coffee, in particular cooked carbohydrates. So now that you've gotten a bit of a basic idea of what acrylamide is, let me give you some background. In 2002, researchers found out that acrylamide is actually a byproduct of heating asparagine, which is an amino acid that is naturally found in coffee and carbohydrate-rich foods, including bread, toast, potato chips, fries, crackers, breakfast cereals, baby food, and breaded meat products. These are all obviously products that we come in contact with all the time, and the fact that acrylamide is a dangerous substance is quite alarming given how often we actually come in contact with it. So once the acrylamide is inside your body, it becomes converted into glycidamide, which is a compound that is more carcinogenic than acrylamide itself. So coming back to our investigation, what was our research problem and why did we decide to do this? Well, we came across an article, quite a few articles in fact, that brought our interest to this particular subject. Reports from multiple facilities around the world denounced the use of food containing this dangerous chemical acrylamide. And it made us wonder how much acrylamide was actually in food that was served at NSU. So the purpose of the study is to determine whether starchy and sugary foods served at the NSU dieting facilities contain a harmful amount of acrylamide. And if there is a harmful amount of acrylamide, our goal is to use those findings to make a change in the NSU community and make sure that all of the food that is consumed by students at NSU is healthy and in no way dangerous. This concept map can give you a bit of an idea of how we approached this subject. So the first thing we realized was that acrylamide is a risk to the health of anyone who consumes it. After that, we looked at foods that contained acrylamide, in particular things that at NSU might contain acrylamide that people commonly eat. Some of the things we found were prune juice, French fries, cookies, breads, but as we had stated before, chips, fries, all of these different things contain acrylamide. And that just goes back to why we needed to figure out the concentration of acrylamide in foods at NSU. It's very important for students, obviously, so we developed a questionnaire and we went in with an interview topic, just asking about people's health awareness at the school, what they felt that the school could do better, and how they were doing overall with providing healthy food, and if they knew anything about acrylamide, that kind of thing. We also looked at how to measure acrylamide. We looked at blacklight fluorescence testing, enzymatic testing. We eventually landed on GCMS, and obviously we'll go into that more, into the whole procedure and how we're conducting the investigation later on in this PowerPoint. And finally, we wanted to look into ways to reduce acrylamide in food if it did turn out that there was quite a bit of acrylamide found in NSU-based food. So we looked at options such as lowering temperature or adding preventase, which is an enzyme that would help decrease the amount of acrylamide in a food. So as is the case with any investigation, we went in with research questions. Our first question was obviously, what is the average concentration of acrylamide in an NSU student's diet? And then next, we looked at Especially through the survey, we looked at these next two questions. How health conscious do NSU students believe themselves to be? And according to students, how effective was NSU's campaign for a healthier diet?
Okay, so now let's talk about our procedure for determining the concentration of acrylamide in NSU students' diets. So first, we took samples of food all around NSU's dining locations, and then we tested these samples of food using gas chromatography mass spectrometry for determining the concentration of acrylamide in these food samples, and used a survey to determine the concentration of acrylamide in NSU students' diets. Next, we're going to deploy a feasible and impactful solution all around campus. I'll go into those further in the next few slides. To begin with, in terms of sampling, we used a random table generator to create a sampling schedule. So this sampling schedule allowed us to randomly find participants at various times and at various dining locations all around campus. And we asked these participants if they would be able to donate 3 grams of their specified foods for analysis. And these participants also shared their results and perspectives on the importance of healthy food at NSU and about what percentage of their diets composed of the foods that we were testing for acrylamide. Next, once we obtained these samples, we refrigerated them until we were able to test them. So to measure the concentration of acrylamide, we used gas chromatography and mass spectrometry. This is a very complex and very accurate technique that is widely used in the scientific community. So to determine any concentration of any known molecule in any sample, gas chromatography mass spectrometry has the highest accuracy. So to do this, we first began by creating a calibration curve of known samples of acrylamide, which was purchased at Sigma Aldrich with an RXI 5ms gas chromatography mass spectrometry column. The RXI 5ms column is nonpolar and has the best results of separating acrylamide from all the other impurities in a mixture. So by creating the calibration curve of known acrylamide, we can compare that with the samples and determine the concentration of acrylamide. And to determine the concentration of acrylamide in the samples of the food all around NSU's campus, we first began by using solid phase extraction with 1-propanol, water, acetylcholine, and hexane. And this allowed us to get the finest sample of acrylamide from a food sample. So to begin with, bread or any food product was subjected to 1-propanol. This caused acrylamide to dissolve from the bread into the solution, and through centrifugation and the other chemicals, we were able to get the pure sample of acrylamide. And then finally, with this pure solution of acrylamide from the food, we ran those samples through the gas chromatography mass spectrometry machine. And as you can see on the right-hand corner, the injector injects the sample into the column, which spins the column at a very high rate and at very high temperature, causing acrylamide to separate from all the other molecules. Next, all the sample goes to an ion source in the mass spectrometer, which uses large magnetic fields to break all the molecules and detect at a detector that detects various amounts of molecules. So the acrylamide will break around all the double bonds, as you can see in the structure on the top right, giving us various factors that we can definitely analyze using gas chromatography. And with that concentration curve, we can extrapolate the data based on the diet survey answers. So if a student was having this food 5 times a day, 5 times a week, and we know how much acrylamide is in one meal of the diet, then we can figure out how much acrylamide the student is intaking over a week. And the EPA suggests that we should not have more than 0.3 milligrams of acrylamide for every 10 days. If we have beyond that, it's extremely harmful, and there has been many cases of individuals developing various cancers and neurodegenerative disorders over time. So using all these results, and if we figure out that acrylamide exists at a harmful level in students' diets, we will have NSU Chartwell dining to lower the temperatures at which foods are subjected. Because acrylamide forms at high temperatures of sugars and carbs combining together, lowering the temperatures at which foods are cooked will greatly reduce the level of acrylamide. In addition, Chartwell and NSU Dining can also add preventase and carrot extract to foods to lower the amount of acrylamide formed at high temperatures. Because preventase and carrots prevent the full formation of Maillard's reaction, which by through acrylamide is created. And if acrylamide does not exist at harmful levels of students' diets, other organizations and colleges will be informed of Chartwell's and NSU Dining's cooking methods, allowing them to prevent the harmful formation of acrylamide in their students' diets, which is a common harmful event that's occurring all around the US. Currently, Starbucks and Subway have been subjected to multiple lawsuits due to their high levels of acrylamide in their food. And if we can solve this, this will save so many lives in the long term. So now, in our specific experiment for determining NSU college students' diet's amounts of acrylamide, we had all these participants consent to providing food samples and filling out survey results. Next, this is a calibration data which we use to determine the food samples versus the known samples. So this right here, you're seeing a mass spectrometry result from the gas chromatography mass spec of a known samples of acrylamide. And as you can see, the known samples of acrylamide have peaks at 71 and 44. So these are the main two peaks of acrylamide that we'll find in a mass spectrometry reading. So if other samples of acrylamide show peaks at 71 and 44, those will be directly correlated with the concentration of acrylamide. And based on the height of the peaks, which is on the top graph, we'll be able to determine the exact concentration of acrylamide. And the area of the peak will also be able to determine the concentration of acrylamide. So using various gas chromatography mass spectrometry graphs as seen before, we were able to find out the entire area of the peaks to correlate that with the concentration of acrylamide. So by using known concentrations of acrylamide versus the area under the peak, we were able to create a calibration curve. And using this calibration curve based on the area under the curve of the unknown samples of potential acrylamide food, then we can determine how much acrylamide is in it. And using this calibration curve, this will be immensely useful for future experiments using food data for determining how much acrylamide is in students' diets.
Along with the calibration curve, we also conducted a survey. This was to measure how students felt about the dining options on campus. We had 35 participants ranging from NSU freshmen all the way to NSU seniors. And so we had a mixed variety of what students felt in terms of how healthy they were and how healthy they felt options on campus were and where they were eating and the frequency that they ate on campus. The first question on the survey was, how effective do you believe NSU's campaign to create a healthier diet for students has been? NSU recently changed their dining hall to accommodate for healthier options that students wanted. So we wanted to measure how much students felt that had changed and if it was effective or not. So we got that out of a 1 to 5 scale. 17 majority of the students felt that NSU's efforts was about a 2 for creating healthier options, and so this shows that it's not really effective. So if we do find acrylamide in the food, we have a stronger chance of creating change, and because students are overall dissatisfied with the results. The next question was, how health conscious are you in terms of diet? From a scale from 1 to 5, most students, 16, put 4. There was no student that put 1. So overall, NSU is a pretty health conscious campus, and in terms of finding acrylamide in the food, they would be more likely to be against it and supporting methods to remove the acrylamide. The next question was, foods containing carbohydrates that are heated to a higher degree have been found to contain acrylamide, a cancer. Which of these foods do you eat? So listed below are all the places on campus to eat. Majority of these are where the carbohydrates can be found. We did update the survey from last year to accommodate for the new food options and the new dining hall. Overall, Starbucks coffee was found to have the most. 82% of our participants said that they go to Starbucks regularly. This is concerning since coffee has been found, specifically Starbucks, to contain the highest level of acrylamide out of all the foods listed on these restaurants. The second highest was Flight Deck, which is found the fries in there does also have a high amount of acrylamide. This shows that this topic is a concern because so many students are going to places that have high acrylamide exposure. The next question was, how much of your diet is comprised of the foods listed above? So we wanted to see if students are eating on campus and what percent that's looking as. So most people said 8. And the second highest was 3. So we found that on a scale to 1 to 10, usually the freshmen and sophomores are required to have a meal plan, so they're the ones who are eating on campus the most. And so that's why they gave an 8, because most of their food is coming from the dining hall. Sophomores or upperclassmen specifically mostly do not have that dining plan, so they mostly cook and eat off campus, but still majority of the NSU population has a dining plan. The next question is, how many times in a week do you eat meals comprised of the foods listed above? So we asked this question so that we could measure, once we get the results, about on average how much a student is being exposed to acrylamide on a weekly basis. We found that most of our participants ate in the dining hall 17 times. Our lower participants who are eating only 4 or 5 times are again upperclassmen, but 17 times was usually comprised of lunch and dinner, and some days having breakfast out of the week. These are our research questions and answers. What is the average concentration of acrylamide in an NSU student's diet? So we're still trying to figure out how to extract acrylamide and measure it in a small portion of a carbohydrate, such as a Flight Deck piece of bread, and then we're going to eventually be able to multiply that to how much a student is eating on a weekly basis, but that's still being investigated due to the complexity of our project. The second question is, how health conscious do NSU students believe themselves to be? So after our survey, we were able to determine this. Most of the students were scoring themselves a 4 out of 5, which means that we are a very health conscious campus. Number 3, according to students, how effective are NSU's campaign for a healthier diet? So since NSU students' average was a 2, it's not very reputable in terms of like healthy options, and most students hope for larger efforts on that part. The relevance of our study is that acrylamide is very harmful in general and can have health effects on NSU students. If students are being exposed to acrylamide in large amounts, that could have lifelong health issues and effect on students' wellness. Students need to be aware of the health effects of acrylamide. As we were conducting the survey, many students had never heard of such a chemical. Also, if acrylamide does exist in harmful levels in a student's diet, then Chartwell's and NSU Dining needs to be advised to lower the temperature, or there needs to be a way to reduce the levels of acrylamide, such as adding preventase. Also, acrylamide, if it does not exist in harmful amounts in a student's diet, then other organizations can be informed of NSU's dying cooking methods because it is a problem in other parts of the country. Below our list of references, it is still relatively new for acrylamide to be considered a carcinogen. It was found in the 2000s itself, so it's been almost a decade. So for that reason, we had to go through a lot of resources and try to find different information and piece it together. Also, we were doing the research ourselves with Dr. Perry, and so we had to find the least expensive method to doing extraction of acrylamide and trying to conduct our project. So we went through a lot of research papers throughout the process. This is our last slide. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to write in the discussion post. Our project is still in development, so if in the future you guys want to know if acrylamide is found in NSU dining, stay tuned.